Hello, everyone. Let's wait a couple of minutes to have more people to join, and then we will start the session. I see some people names that I know. Hello, Paul.
Hi, Paul.
Hello, good morning, or good evening, good afternoon, Shanghai.
Hi. Yeah.
Hi, Paul.
Hello.
Hello, Gianna. Hello, Marion.
Hello. Good to be here.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, the situation in China is a bit complex these days with the COVID epidemic to go out really fast. So we will see how that impacts the number of people joining. Okay, did you want to use the slides at the background, Annie?
Okay, let me share the screen.
Yeah, just if you want to. Gianna. Okay, one more minute and we start. Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here today and hosting the sessions. Yeah, maybe you can go to the next slide, Annie. So. Perfect. So on my side, just to present myself a little bit, I'm Benoit Raoult. I will be the moderator today of this panel. I'm the founder and CEO of Duhno Marketing, based out of Shanghai. So we are a digital marketing agency based out of Shanghai doing performance marketing. We have today with us Guillaume Doki-Thonon. So hello, Guillaume. Yeah, we have Guilhem Vacher. Hello. And we have Antoni Marcovici.
Hi, everyone.
So the thematic today is really to talk about Chinese brand entering the European market. First, maybe I will let you, Guillaume and Guilhem, introduce your agencies. I don't know, maybe Guilhem, you want to start or?
Yeah, sure. So let's start. So I'm Guilhem. Nice to meet you all. I'm the managing director of La Concorde. La Concorde is a brand and marketing agency, French agency actually. We used to work with, of course, French clients, but also international clients. And we're gonna speak more precisely on one specific Chinese client we worked with for 2 years now. And I'm gonna introduce also Antoni. Antoni, who is the co-founder and associate of La Concorde and who is in charge of marketing, brand, and digital strategy for our clients.
Thank you. Guillaume, you want to introduce also Reech on your side?
Yes, pleasure. Hi, everyone. So my name is Guillaume Doki-Thonon. I'm the co-founder of Reech. I'm really happy to be invited here today and to speak with you today. As you may notice, Reech is a French company. We are a pure player in influencer marketing. It means that we are doing only influencer marketing. We've launched back in 2015 at the beginning of the influencer marketing market in France. It's when we stopped speaking of bloggers and the term influencer is starting to appear in France at that time. And we have quite, I would say, quite a different positioning, quite a particular positioning in France, because originally we're a tech company. 1/3 of our team is tech, is a tech team, and we developed a technology that is called Reech Influence Cloud, and we are able to get data from the influencer and their followers all around the world. We have a partnership with major social networks, and because of that, we are able to gather a lot of data regarding all the influencers that exist in the world. And we also have an agency positioning because we also help brands that are not really mature in terms of influencer marketing. So we have both positioning agency for the brands that are not mature enough to do their own influencer marketing campaign. And we have the tech positioning. We are also selling our tech directly to advertisers, the ones that are the most mature, and they can do influencer marketing by themselves. And just don't be shy. I mean, today I'm going to introduce you how influencer marketing works in France and in Europe. Please feel free to ask any question. I mean, it's I don't made any slides, more like a conversation. So feel free to shout any question in the conversation module.
Thank you, Guillaume, as well. Yes, so feel free, as Guillaume mentioned, to use the chat or even potentially ask questions. We have a dedicated session also at the end of the conversation for Q&A, but we can make it a live session. It's a panel discussion, so the purpose is really to interact if you wish. I just would like to introduce a little bit about the context in China. So China has developed the Silk Road Initiative. So they are encouraging Chinese brands to go in Europe and I would say to North Africa as well. So this is an important context for us today, as there will be large investments coming to Europe in the coming, I would say, in the coming months. There is also another trend is I would say the political situation between China and US makes the brands consider Europe more than the US market for now. There is a clear trend in that aspect as well. And we also have in that context the reopening of China. So for some of you, you may have heard the news in China since a couple of days. China has abandoned part of the zero COVID policy. So I think it's impacted a little bit today. Many people are actually having COVID in China now because it's been 3 years without any sickness. And from one day to another, everything is reopened. So we have hundreds of thousands of people getting sick in Beijing or in Shanghai right now. So it has a real impact. But what is good, it also means that in a couple of months, a lot of the travel will start again. And we already see delegations from different provinces. So province can be like countries in Europe, no? Different province organizing delegations to travel to Europe to start to make new business relationship, business collaborations, and really touring on different trade shows and business meetings, basically. So in this context, we will see, I think, a flow of brands from China entering the Chinese market to demonstrate their innovation. Chinese brands are innovative and they bring innovations in Europe for sure. And I think the examples of brands you have in both of your case at Reech or at La Concorde are really demonstrating this innovation from China coming to Europe. So that's a really interesting topic today. One of the first questions we had when we prepared this meeting was really about, do you think Chinese brand needs a dedicated marketing strategy for Europe as per se? So something different than a Chinese strategy or a global one. And we can talk especially about the branding aspect or the influencer aspect. So I don't know who wants to start to answer these questions.
Guillaume, if you don't mind, I would love to jump in.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. And good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. The short answer is yes. There will be not much suspense there. Yes. I think we all know it. What's more interesting is why and how actually. What are we talking about? What are the nuances that we're discussing? As Guilhem said, we've been working with XPeng, and we started working with them at the beginning of 2021, when they had already launched their brand in a test and learn manner, taken of beta manner in Norway and in just one market in Europe, and they were looking at expanding first in Northern Europe and then in bigger markets, south and center of Europe. What's interesting is that they came as a leading, and that's who they are, and that's how they were projecting who they were. They came as a leading innovative car and electric vehicle brand in China, and they wanted to mimic that in Europe. There were several problems or challenges, let's say. The first one is that Europe is a very crowded market, including when it comes now to electric vehicles. So figures have evolved. As we know, this is a very dynamic market, but figures from early 2021, the EV market across Europe was around 10%, right? So 10% of new cars sold were electric or hybrid cars. And there were huge differences between Northern European markets like Norway, where we're much closer to 30%, actually, maybe a little more in Norway, and Southern markets like Spain, Italy, or even France, where we're between 5 and 10, sometimes closer to 5. So there were regional differences. It was a crowded market. No one knew XPeng. There was no knowledge of who they were from PR. Yes, there was some influencer, car influencer or car journalist PR that had been done in the UK or in Northern Europe, but not that much. So they hoped that everything they had quite literally built in China, I'm talking about the giant factories, the innovation, the AI that fuels their cars, because their cars are like modern EV cars, and maybe even slightly ahead, they're very smart computers rather than just 4 wheels and a steering wheel. And they hope that they could leverage all of that directly and put it into Europe, and tell consumers, look, this is who we are. We are that leading Chinese giant, in a way very innovative, and that will do. What happened is that they had failed to really consider those European differences. Norway, Denmark, and Sweden can kind of work together from a marketing perspective. France is its own thing, much like the UK is, Germany, and etc. And you know it. So I guess the first thing that we had to discuss with them was how we would create a European version of their brand. Again, an adaptation, not a reinvention, or I should put it like that, European versions of their brand, because there had to be nuances, at least in the ways we expressed what the brand and what the products were to different regional or local markets. So there are many things, again, from the language to the competitive set that they're going to be up against, to the aspirations and needs of different markets. As we know, when we've been working in Europe for a while, German consumers for cars are not going to look for the same thing as French ones, Norwegian ones, and Spanish ones. This is why a brand like Volkswagen has 6 different brands, like a group like Volkswagen has 6 different brands that perform better or worse depending on the market. So yes, for all those nuances, and sorry, it's a bit of a long-winded answer, but I'll stop there. One thing I'll add is that, and I think it's true for European brands that go to China as well, there was a lack of understanding that the Chinese brand in and of itself was not going to be enough, that there was to be something more European. Benoit, I like the fact that you reminded us of the Silk Road and Belt initiative. It's something that we leverage with them. Saying actually, those ties with China, between China and Europe and North Africa, have been here for a millennium, because that's what we're talking about. And it's something we can leverage, but there's, in a way, an effort that needs to be made. It's not just, okay, we're a Chinese brand, we're great, we're arriving, because when you do that, there's still, especially when it comes to EV, and those are not my words, but this is so doing some social listening, there's still that copycat effect. Yeah, they're just, a cheaper Tesla, or they're just, a cheaper Volkswagen ID, for instance. And so that copycat effect had to be countered. It had to be taken into account. That's why we needed to create some form of positive association between Europe and China, and we leverage those connections, those very old connections.
Your mic is off.
Yes, super interesting points. Thank you for going through all of this. Maybe more on the influence side. Guillaume, you want to answer the question as well?
Yeah, I'm gonna answer it, as you said, especially on the influencer side, the side that I know. So without any surprise, my answer will be yes as well. I'm just curious about the people that are listening to us. I think you have the option to raise your hand on the Microsoft Teams. Who has already launched an influencer marketing campaign, whether it's in China or in French, just to know the maturity of the people in the room? Who has, if you can raise your hand, the one that launched already an influencer marketing campaign. So few hands are risen. Okay, so I think it's more like a room of beginners, so it's good. So I'm gonna answer it more first of all by trying to say what are the influencer marketing ecosystem in France or in Europe. So first of all, to give you an idea of the number, there is 500,000 influencers in Europe, 150,000 in France. So I think compared to China is quite low. Benoit, tell me if I'm wrong. But so just to let you know what are the influencer marketing ecosystem, it's 150,000 in France, 500,000 in Europe. In Europe, we speak a lot about mid-tail influencer because people understand that the top influencer doesn't create the much engagement. So people are looking for influencers that are less than 100,000 followers. If you look at the average influencer size in Europe is 50,000 followers. The medium size is 30,000, so it's not big influencer. It's what we call the mid-tail here in Europe, and about 80% of the influencer marketing activation that we are doing involve that kind of influencer, the mid-tail influencer, around 50,000, 50K followers. So as you can understand, we are not targeting a lot of huge influencer. The main part of influencer marketing activation are with that mid-tail influencer. They are 30 years old in average, the influencer in Europe, 31 to be precise. So it's not young influencers as we can think of. There's a lots of we have a lot of false information about influencer if you look only on the media, because the real ecosystem is really different of what we think of. And what I think is important to answer that question, Benoit, is in France and in Europe, we see influencer more as a branding strategy. We don't do a lot of if you do performance-based influencer marketing, usually you're gonna get bad results, because if you ask influencer to do some promotion and try to be paid with the sales that they are generating. They are becoming more commercial, and the follower doesn't really like that in Europe. So you have to think first of a branding strategy, to start with a branding strategy when you're doing influencer marketing campaigns. I just saw a question. Yeah, that's true. The definition, the terms that we use, we actually have the same debates in Europe, because if you ask influencer themselves, they don't want to be called influencer. You've got 70% of them that prefer to be called content creator. We don't have a lot of this key opinion leader terms in Europe, but they prefer content creators because they say that the first thing that they are doing is create content, and then when they create content, they can speak about brands. But the first thing that we are doing is create content, and they really prefer the term content creator here in Europe. And this is also why maybe they speak more about the branding aspect of influencer marketing more than the performance aspect.
Okay, thank you for your.
I just want to add something to the conversation with Guillaume, because I think it's interesting to pinpoint the fact that in Europe you get some kind of mid-tail, influencer with such small, dedicated audience. Benoit, you once told me that in China, because you are very, very expert in China, there is some affinitary social media with really huge number of users, and actually it doesn't exist in Europe because the audience is very fragmented, with some audience pool really small compared to China, with more than several billions people actually. So I think it's interesting because it's one of the points we got a lot of conversation with Spain regarding this, because sometimes we used to how can I say that, but decide or be judgmental on some audience of influencer we were recommended, because the number they get in China were very different, and we have to explain to them that this is very different in Europe. The audience pool is very different. It's very fragmented per country, and that the numbers couldn't be compared to the numbers in China.
Yeah, please go ahead, Guillaume.
Yeah, totally true. And I see a question from Paul speaking about virtual influencer. It's funny because back in 2018 there were a lot of buzz about the virtual influencer, lots of press that's speaking about them. But if you look the facts, really, if you focus on the facts, there is actually, I would say, 10 influencers that are like avatars or well-known influencer. One of them are about less than 1 million followers. So if you look at the 150,000 influencers that are in France, you've got 10 avatars. So it's still like a micro trend, not even a trend. And like the biggest influencer in France are more than 10 million followers. The biggest avatar is less than 1 million. So it's still for me, it's like experiment from people from marketing and communication. It's not really a big trend in Europe.
I think you mentioned two different aspects there. The comparison of size between China and Europe. I tend to say that China is like 20 countries of Europe with all the provinces. So there is a certain complexity in managing China with different regions, different habits, different dialects, different cultural background, also in China. And sometimes view from China, the same as view from Europe, we see China as a whole. Europe is also maybe fragmented as well. So we have to consider this. And when you compare size of influencers or size of pools of influencers compared to the size of the Chinese influencers, it also can be tricky if you make direct comparisons. So that's fine. I think we have covered quite a lot the fact that there is a need for European branding, I would say, clearly done. You both, I mean, you three of you answered yes to the question directly, and then you digged into it. I think you also mentioned the fact that we need to go to country level, or at least certain, couple of countries together, not even just thinking about a European approach, but thinking country by country to see what are the cultural difference. And there is a big barrier in Europe with the languages, different country, different language, which makes already a big barrier of entry for some of the brands there. Shall we move to the second questions that we had discussed during the preparation? Some of those Chinese brands, and I think you started to mention that, Guilhem, that they need to differentiate themselves in Europe. They need to create their own identity. So I don't remember if it was Antoni or Guilhem mentioning about the copycat background. So the kind of an image that is latent in Europe regarding the Chinese brands that have to demonstrate they are actually innovative brands now, and we have to consider them as such. So in those questions of differentiation, what are your experiences? What can you share about this? So who wants to jump in?
So I can start again, and Guillaume, tell me what you want to add, and Guilhem and I have the same things to say. When it comes to Xpeng, what I'll say here, I can talk to what Xpeng started doing. So after their initial landing, as it were, in Europe and mostly Northern Europe, and just being the Chinese company and the very innovative Chinese company and the Chinese brand that they had been, they started seeing that there was a limit to that they needed to find a different recipe for success. And to boil it down, I would say that they started being a little more European. They started associating themselves, and it goes back to influence or creators. They started associating themselves with European players. One of the first things we did, and I find that interesting, there was a desire, I would say, on the part of Xpeng to go big on advertising. Of course, there was an awareness issue, so advertising had to be tackled, and they wanted to go big on content as well. One of the things we saw is that they needed to align themselves with people who are going to make them relevant in Europe. So creators, but also artists like photographers, musicians, so that they would, again, as fast as possible, get some European vibe, some European flavor, in a way, not change who they were, not change their products, of course, even though, just as a little side anecdote, it seems obvious, but I will share it. Yeah. When they launched so they have different cars, when they launched the P7, which is the flagship sedan in Norway, in Northern Europe, the first units that arrived were not fully translated yet. So there was no Chinese language, operations or features left in the cars, but not all of the features were available. So you had a certain set of features in English, but many of the features advertised on the website were not yet implemented in the European cars. But that's an aside. Exactly. It seems obvious, but sometimes yes, Guilhem, go.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak about this because it happens on several products from Xpeng, and what needs to be understood is that the key selling point of a product in China is not the key selling point of the same product in Europe because of regulations. For example, because we were speaking about the automotive sector, Xpeng is almost autonomous vehicle in China. But it's not possible in Europe, and so all these KSPs cannot be activated in a product campaign and we need to think different on that and use other KSPs and differences. For example, the P5 in China, it's one of the sedan of Xpeng. They put ahead the fact that all the seats can be lowered down. You can almost sleep in the car. You even have a widescreen TV within it, and everything is totally first impossible and not in the usage in Europe. So we couldn't speak about this, and that's thank you, Antoni, to raise that, because it was a really fun to tackle this kind of issues.
So just to add a few things there, but so differentiating yourself is taking into account the constraints, regulatory or users, and going back to the brand. So rather than starting with a TV commercial, which is again the surest and shortest way to awareness, again, and then there's so much more to do, but that's where it begins usually. We actually partnered with a photographer called Vincent Fournier, who's a photographer of the future. In a way, he explores what humans have been doing to create futures, whether it's nuclear sites or the space programs. So he develops imaginations around the future. And so we did a partnership with them. He became our first photographer for our first European-wide campaign, which was a digital and print campaign. Print magazines are still something when it comes to cars that's interesting in Europe. And thank you for sharing that. It was called Visions of the Future. And we began again by creating some cultural relevance, trying to erase that copycat element by having a French photographer who is widely known, which is interesting for us in Europe and in China as well, and in Japan too, in different countries of Asia. Again, to make them fit the landscape, the European landscape, and then we could move on to things that were more around awareness. And we're not going to discuss that right now. Maybe that will be for another part of the conversation. But I find that also there's a challenge in terms of cultural understanding or misunderstanding between a Chinese brand and the European landscape when it comes to brand marketing and performance marketing. There is, very understandably so in China, a mix of brand and performance marketing. We're talking about Guillaume influencers and the differences that you were very clearly explaining between, okay, the KOCs or the creators, KOCs in China and creators in Europe. We don't have the same, we don't have the apps, and notably the power apps that exist in China, where everything blends together, right? Where it's all about brand and performance at the same time. We don't have live commerce that much. I'm honest, it hasn't taken off in Europe or in the Western world in general, in the US too. And so that's also that challenge. It cannot be all about performance marketing in Europe because if you skip the awareness and engagement consideration part of the journey, you're just going to fight it off with Amazon brands that sell water bottles and whatever, but no one will notice your little square on the web page.
You're mute.
Yes, sorry. Thank you. Pretty clear, Antoni, on this. Guillaume, you want to react on the influence side as well?
Yeah, I want to react, and Antoni actually give me a great transition, because I wanted to start by a mistake that is done, that I can see a lot with Chinese brand when they launch in Europe, is that they usually keep the notoriety and awareness part in terms of influencer marketing. So I'm really glad that Antoni speaks about it, because you know that when you're doing marketing, you've got notoriety, awareness first, then consideration, then brand preference, and then you go to intention of buying. And I see a lot of brands that start their influencer market, lots of Chinese brands but also actually European brands that start the influencer marketing strategy with the intention of buying part, but they are not known. They didn't work on the notoriety and awareness, and they actually spend a lot of money to try to get performance-based marketing. But if you don't have the awareness, you're going to spend performance-based money to actually get awareness, which is the worst things you can do in terms of strategy. And I think it's, as Antoni said, in Europe, it applied a lot because it's really difficult to mix awareness and performance in the same campaigns. We are working, to give you an example of what you can do. We are working with Oppo. Oppo is one of our biggest customer here in France. So it's a Chinese mobile phone manufacturer. And we convinced them to do a lot of awareness. We also worked with OnePlus, and I think they were really good in building the campaigns in different steps. They started with working with tech influencers, the one that knows a lot mobile phone, in order to get consideration and brand preference, and then they started biggest campaign regarding intention of buying. And if you look at Oppo, what they did is, for example, last year they launched a music clip with two famous French singers, French rappers, and they really localized their campaign to create awareness about the brands before doing performance campaign. So I think it's the same that what La Concorde explained with Xpeng, trying to find local artists to create the awareness, to Europeanize the brand, and then you can go and do the different step of your campaign.
Okay, thanks for this compliment here. We have another questions. We can move to the next one. So we are really so you started to talk about it all along the presentation, I guess, but we have this notion about the typical challenge for a new Chinese brand to enter the European market. So you both started to mention some cases that you have worked on. I would say, what are the learnings, maybe, or what would you advise to Chinese brands that would like to enter the European market? I open the floor. Up to you.
Well, I can start. I can start. So the thing that we said before is important. I think is one of the key learning is start with awareness and try to involve European partner in order to localize your campaign. I'm thinking of a project we did with a Chinese brand, and I think they tried to copy what they were doing with in their influencer marketing strategy in China. And in Europe, you need to know that they are, as I said in the beginning, they are less influencer, and you're not gonna find the perfect fit. As they are less influencer, maybe the follower are not 100% the one that you are targeting. Maybe the influencer speak about other subject than the one that you want to speak, but there is no perfect fit in terms of influencer marketing. You have to make compromises when you're working with European influencer, and also you need to know that the influencer have the power in Europe. They are contacted with a lot of brands, and because of that, you also have to make compromise on your campaign. And one of the mistakes I see, and one of the learning, is that you have to know that you're going to make some compromise in the campaign. If you don't want to, you're not going to find the perfect fit and the influencer that's going to accept everything you ask them for. So that would be my first learnings of a project that can fail if you don't apply it.
Okay, thank you. Antoni,
yeah. And thank you, Guillaume, for, I think that is very important. And to me, we could organize the challenges in a form of pyramid, let's say, from the top to the bottom. At the top, again, going back to brand marketing and communication, if we're talking about awareness, we will probably want to be very efficient in terms of how we spend the dollars for the big print campaigns, TV commercials, etc. And there, the first challenge is languages, of course, because we know many different languages. And if you look at, again, talking pan-European assets in films or print ads or out of home, for instance, they find the lowest common denominator. They find a way for it. I'm going to say something that's very tactical, and Guilhem knows it well for the many commercials that we've produced for Xpeng or before. But you're going to avoid the things that are heavy in dialogue, for instance, because if you have someone speaking in English, but you're going to have to dub it in Spanish or in Italian or in French, well, the result won't feel adequate. So you're going to be very image-led, imagination-led. You're going to avoid as much as you can someone speaking into the camera directly. This is very tactical, but this is something that must be kept in mind. Again, at the top of that pyramid, you have to have something that's as universally European as possible. And even when it comes to the choice of landscapes, the kind of cities, many of the car commercials for Europe are shot in Barcelona, which has a good mix of, okay, some vertical city, old historic buildings, the light is nice, it doesn't hurt that the light is nice in Barcelona usually. So there's that, but then as you move down that pyramid, which is kind of a funnel, I imagine, then you get more regional or local freedom. And actually, to Guillaume's point, I think you need to be much more specific and much more intentional about, okay, this is how we're going to activate in that market. This is how we're going to, and things are going to be different. Influencers in different markets are not going to expect the same. They're not going to offer the same. There are, but Guillaume, I'm interested to have your take on that as well. There are slight differences in terms of social platforms used. In Southern Europe, maybe some of them, notably the meta ones, will still be slightly higher up. In Northern European countries, it's going to be different. So it's very important to take all those nuances into account. Again, there is no WeChat, and that's what we come down to. There is no WeChat in Europe. Whether it's YouTube, TikTok, which is hugely popular with Gen Z audiences, or Instagram, none of them is as all-encompassing and all-powerful as WeChat, for instance. So again, at the top, some universal European commonalities, and the more we go towards local activation, the more we have to make sure we understand even the media landscape and the influence landscape nuances.
Yes, sorry.
I'm sorry, Guillaume. I'm just wanting to add something on the more like how can I say this, but some kinds of key learning on a more organizational aspect of things. What we did learn is that sometimes, because we are in some creative aspects of the brand communication and advertisement, and it's all about cultural references. And what we learned the hard way is that we don't have the same cultural references as in China. We haven't been exposed at the same, TV shows, films, books, and culture in a broader aspect, in a broader size of things. And what we learned, the things have started to turn, the tides have started to turn when the Xpeng team hired some European background people within it. And the things have a little bit shifted because we knew that what we proposed was for the European audience. And of course, some of our Chinese contacts didn't understand. I got in mind one meeting for a new script, for a new film. And we couldn't understand because it was so much tied in the cultural, references of Europe that we couldn't understand what we were trying to do. But actually, we still think that it was the best movie we should have done, but it was not possible. And then the European team crew of Xpeng started, to make some internal advocacy of what we were trying to do, and the things get smoother. So one key learning is for a Chinese brand, don't hesitate to hire some European background people if you are trying to launch, because they're going to ease the things and put some oil in, the cogs between the HQ in China and your agency in Europe.
You're mute.
Still muted, sorry. You wanted to react, Guillaume, to what Antoni was saying, I guess, earlier.
Yeah, I wanted to react about the social media. So first of all, you need to know that Instagram is the top. It's the social networks where there are the most influencer marketing campaign right now all around Europe. It's more than 90% of influencer say that they want to do influencer marketing campaign on Instagram, and more than 90% of brands say they want to do influencer marketing campaign on Instagram. So it's still the leader. However, TikTok is coming since last year, and it's coming really, really fast. And as Antoni said, the way TikTok is evolving, and the pace, at what pace TikTok is coming is different a little bit regarding the different country in Europe. So it's still not on the top 3 influencer marketing platforms, but it's coming fast. Regarding the question, the challenges, I'm gonna also give an advice that is really operational, but I think it's interesting. You have to look, if you're doing influencer marketing campaigns in Europe, you really have to look into the data of influencer, because in different countries of Europe, we have big diasporas, and we have languages that are used in other countries. For instance, if you look at Spain, if you get deeper into the data of biggest influencer in Spain, you will see that more than 50% of their followers are located in Latin America. And if you are launching a product in Spain, you have to understand that maybe 50% of your effort will go to Latin America. There is the same trends in UK. Big UK influencer have followers in India. And you have the same in France. It's smaller, but some of the followers are in North Africa, in French-speaking countries in Africa. So really get into the data, because you will see that maybe your effort will go into countries that you're not targeting. It's really important. I mean, data is key in China or in Europe, but especially when you see that in Europe there are languages that are spoken in some other country, data is even a bigger aspect, a bigger challenge.
Great tips. Thanks. We see Paul mentioning as well. It seems that Chinese marketing students who have studied in Europe might be perfect influencers or KOL to target the Chinese audience. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I think it's good. I can see the example with Oppo. I mean, the thing that Guilhem or Antoni spoke, the way the company is built. I mean, in Oppo we have the leader that are Chinese, that are people that came from China, from the China headquarters. But the social media manager, for instance, of the different country, they are local from the country. I mean, we are in contact with a French social media manager in France, with a German social media manager in Germany. So it's something that works, and you can find also either European students that went to China for their study and that can work and that know how they're going to work with the Chinese headquarters, or the other way around, Chinese marketing students that have studied in Europe. So that's going to ease the relation with the agencies and with influencers.
Okay. Any comments on this, Antoni or Guilhem? No. Okay, no, that's fine.
No. I think it's very well covered, so nothing new to add there.
Okay, perfect. We enter now in the Q&A sessions. We can have a couple of questions. So some people have been reactive during the speech already. Do you have any questions now in relation to Chinese brand entering the European market? And leave a couple of minutes for people to put this in their mind. Paul is having a question, so please, Paul.
Do you want it audio or in the chat? Audio, I suppose. No.
Audio is fine. Yeah, audio is fine. Please go ahead.
Okay, I understand that if a Chinese brand has people that understand that the European Union and Europe has many different languages and cultures and markets, if there's somebody who knows that. And I understand that sectors can make a difference in deciding the top 3 markets for them. But in general, in your experience, marketing people from China who look at Europe and want to enter and launch something the first year, what would be in general their top 3 countries? Probably starting with the UK, I would imagine, but then France, Germany, the South, the North. How does that look in general? I know it's a generalization.
Who wants to answer this question?
Well, firstly, for me, as you said, Paul, I think it really depends on the industry. But what I can usually see, I always hear about UK, France, and Germany. That's like the trio I often hear about. But I think it really depends on the industry. I don't know what you think on the car industry.
So I think it's interesting if we're talking probably consumer goods, things that are going to be not as expensive as a car or as a smartphone. Even the smartphone is going to be in between. Actually, medium-sized markets might be safer bets because you can just test the waters, right? Like think what Xpeng did starting in Norway and other Northern European markets was very smart because France, Germany, Italy, Spain. And the UK is a bit of a, not just because they left the European Union, but the UK is a bit of a different thing altogether now. It was smart. If you're launching consumer goods, then you might as well go for the FIGs, as they're often called, France, Italy, Germany, and Spain. And then, of course, you have Netherlands, Belgium there. That you begin at the core, literally, geographically, of Europe. You can go there. But for technological, expensive products and categories, I think the smaller markets, I think this is what many Chinese brands do. Smaller markets, which are small by Chinese standards, for sure, because if we're talking, I don't know, Norway, we're talking 4 million inhabitants. But again, very much beta testing, which can make sense.
Yeah, that's a very interesting slant on that as a test market. That's very interesting.
Yes, thanks. But I can see also brands like Xiaomi being more into the South market. I think like Spain and even North Africa, I think they have developed more this aspect because they are more on the low cost kind of positioning, and they have developed quite well in the South Europe countries for what I can see as a consumer, but I don't know for a marketing point of view how they have developed there. Any additional questions or reaction here? We have still 4 or 5 minutes we can use. I don't know. You have talked extensively about Xpeng. I don't know, Guillaume, do you want to talk about one of your case, something that strikes you that you would like to also develop a little bit more?
Well, I think I developed it on the different part. I mean, the one from Oppo, the case from OnePlus, the mistake that I saw on another case. I won't tell the name on that. On trying to find the perfect fit, maybe trying to copy what they I think the influencer marketing ecosystem in China is is more broad, and maybe you can find the perfect influencer that represent exactly your followers, your product, etc. Which is not the case in Europe. You're gonna have to make some compromise. So I think it's something that you have to keep in mind. I'm trying to think of other cases. Oh, I see that Paul raised.
Also have another question. Yeah, please, Paul.
Yes, this dovetails into my previous question, but I'm sure that you have data on this too. Thinking of gastronomy, both for France, Portugal, Spain, Italy, I think that would be a case where perhaps the Chinese who have products or customers interested in European gastronomy would put maybe Southern Europe on, as a key market. And so my question is, have you detected that they're interested in French cuisine and French wines, cheeses, in Spain, wines and Spanish ham have been areas which in Spain they've cultivated quite a lot in the last couple of years in general for internationalization. And I think China is beginning to be interested, but I'm not sure of the figures. What is your experience on that? Gastronomy.
Anyone want to take this one?
I'm afraid, Paul, my experience is mostly eating good Spanish ham and and drinking and eating everything that we can get from Spain, Portugal, Italy. I'm with you there. I was in Rome in October. I still vividly remember the taste on my palate. So as a consumer, I can fully agree. Unfortunately, I don't have any professional marketing experience in the category.
Okay, I know a great tapas place in Barcelona. Benoit will remember.
I will hit you up on that.
Okay.
Maybe this question is also related to exporting European brands toward China, but it's a bit different than the topic we are trying to cover today. Of course, we found many of the European product in the Chinese market, and there is, of course, on this let's say Silk Road, also product going the other way around. And this is also something that is happening, of course, quite strongly. I would say China is developing quite a lot also their food products, especially in Sichuan. You have a lot of people in Sichuan, so Chengdu is developing a lot the agriculture, and some of the products they have a direct train going through Russia, so it's a bit blocked these days, but they have a train going directly to Europe. So there are some fresh products coming directly from China to the European market, and some raw materials that also will certainly change our habit of consumptions. Especially, for example, there are some really raw materials to build breads that are actually made in China now. So the wheat, but also the levers and different aspects for that are actually made in China that start to come in Europe. So there are some trends like that because of the new roads that allow to have cheap and fast transportation. This is changing the habits, and they will certainly change. Also, China is investing quite a lot overall as I would say as a government to promote the Chinese culture internationally. So we can start to see more and more movies, more and more even I would say animation movies done by the Disney studios or by the Netflix that are taking some cultural elements from China. So I mean, we are all here about the same generation roughly, so we all have been educated with US culture, all the comics and series coming from the US, and we have seen the streets of New York and San Francisco in different movies and stuff. I think China is doing a soft power education more and more. And I think with this, some of the tastes will also evolve. People will also start to appreciate more of the Chinese food and get more knowledgeable about the Chinese food. Chinese wine is developing and start to also have really good products that are of quality to export. So all of this will also flow to Europe one way or another, I believe. Just to try to answer to Paul's question here on at least what we can see on our side from China. about the Chinese brand, asking for some aspect. Just for reference as well, like in Chengdu, there is a huge Amazon center dedicated for Chinese products to go to Europe. I think they have 5,000, 6,000 brands just in that center that they are managing, Chinese brands going to Europe. So there is a huge pool of Chinese brands trying to come to China in fashion, in electronics, cars industry. They are certainly coming as well. So that's really really interesting. It sounded kind of like
interesting.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. It sounded kind of a conclusion already, so I think we are time. Time is there. I would like to take the time to thank you. In order of my screen, now we change a little bit, but we had Guillaume, Antoni, and Guilhem. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the active questions. We have Paul pretty active on the question, Annie as well. Thanks a lot for today's presentation. And we will continue to address similar topics. So feel free to reach us, follow us. We will share with you the deck of slides to have our contact as well. If you have questions you would like to discuss in more details. Thank you.
Thank you for the invite, Benoit. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.